I'm one of those that when I go to a session, I want to make sure I come away with something. So I'm hoping that in the next, what do I have, 3 hours? That I'll give you some takeaways of things you can do and how you can clone your best donors. I'm Gary Seitz. I'm the Vice President of CTRAC, which is the data division of Midwest Direct. And I'll tell you one thing is, I love data. And this is my hero. And he manages data the same way I do. I just love working with data. I'm also one of those that likes an interactive session, so if you have questions as we go, please ask. But I'm going to show you how you can find new donors that are similar to those that you have today. I went to a nonprofit session a couple of years ago, and this is how they preceded their whole presentation. They were talking about donors, and they said that your bucket has a hole in it. You've got your new donors that you've acquired. They're at the top of your bucket. You've got your current donors, and then you have your donors that have ceased giving. And the issue is that donors are flowing out of your bucket faster than they're flowing in. And how is it that we can keep filling the bucket at the top? Because you really can't always plug the holes at the bottom of the bucket. So that's what we're going to take a look at. Now, many nonprofits say, okay, when we have this issue, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go find ourselves some wealthy donors and take care of it. And the problem is you can't find those because all of you in the room are looking for the same ones in town. And it's the ones that are in the middle of the bucket, the current donors, the continuing donors. Those are the ones that you want to try to find, and we're going to show you how, or help you find those types of donors. So recent poll results about donors and giving says that 75% of those who give to charities listed their reason for doing so as, we were asked. It wasn't necessarily a particular cause or charity that they wanted, but somebody simply asked them to make a donation. 42% of those who did not give to charities listed their reason for giving as, nobody asked. You simply have to ask. So this is from Giving USA. It's one of the largest organizations that tracks information regarding donations and charitable giving. This is their 2018. Their 2019 numbers aren't available yet. They'll be later available like May or June. But what I was interested in is where donations are coming from. From foundations, 18%, which was up 7% over the prior year. Bequests, which was unchanged. Corporations increased their donations by a little over 5%. And 68% coming from individuals, which is down about 1% from the prior year. So this is where donations are coming from. 68% of donations come from individuals. And what causes are they given to? Where are those dollars going? And the number one is, let's see, I do have a point here. Religion, 29% of donations go to religious organizations or charities, followed by education, human services, foundations, and health. On the right-hand side, I've listed what's happened compared to the prior year. In the case of foundations, donations have dropped almost 7% from the prior year, from 2017 to 2018. The increases are coming from international. When we see things like tsunamis or earthquakes, that sort of thing, where that giving is related to international affairs. Arts, culture, and humanities, like the Playhouse Square, the museums. 3% to animals and environment, like the Animal Protective League in town here. And 2% to individuals, which is really unchanged from the prior year. So I was really interested in finding out where dollars are going to. So the number of donors in the U.S. was highest in 2005, and it's declined considerably ever since. In fact, right now, based 2018, 56% of Americans give to charity compared to 68% 5 years ago. That's how much the landscape has shifted in charitable giving. However, the good news is that charitable donor retention rates for reoccurring donors has increased to about 65%. Those donors giving again from year to year or even in month-to-month programs. Okay, I'm not sure where I got a point to Here we go. So, this is the part now where I'm going to show you how to do this and what you need to do. And the way to start with this process of cloning your existing donors, obviously, is start with your most recent donors. And the most common question I get is, what do you consider recent? I prefer to work with 1-year donors. However, the typical span is working with 2-year donors. Don't like to go beyond that using 3 to 5-year donors. Again, because of the changing landscape and the way people change their jobs, it's okay to solicit 2-year past 5-year donors, but when we're trying to clone who your existing donors are, we want to look at those that have made a donation within the last year or two. So you need to be able to extract those donors from your database as a start to look to begin to clone for new donors. Then you need to filter that group of donors. Either you can do it, or if you're somebody else is preparing your analysis here, they can do some of the filtering for you. But here's what you want to do. You want to eliminate outliers from your target geography. If you're a Northeast Ohio charity, there goes my name, Northeast Ohio charity, then you only want to deal with zip codes, for example, 440, 441, 442, the Northeast Ohio area. And you want to eliminate donors that have either temporarily moved or were interested in your cause and they live in Connecticut or California, New York, Illinois, whatever, because they will skew the results that come out of attempting to clone who your current donors are. If you're a national organization, leave them all in there. That's fine. You want to eliminate some of the foreign, Puerto Rico, some of the territories and so on. But then you just simply want to focus on the geographic footprint of where you're doing your program, where you're doing your solicitations. So eliminate the outliers from that group. Eliminate the low value donors, the $1, $2, $3 type of donors. You may have a lot of $5 donors and you want to keep them in there. Or you may have just a few of the $5 donors. If they're $5 per contribution on a monthly basis, then you want to keep them in there. But you want to get rid of those low value donors because we don't want to include them in what we're going to build in cloning what our new donors need to look like or who we're going to prospect to. Eliminate non-typical donors. These might be employees that are in your donation file, volunteers that have given, some of your board members should be eliminated because we're trying to create a universe of names of what we want to clone, who we want to go after. And those are more exceptions to the rule than they are the norm and the standard of who we want to target as a part of our program. So I'm going to show you some of this in a few minutes using a local charity and some of the different cloning tools that we used. Okay, a guy with a remote is dangerous, but I don't know where I'm pointing.
Still struggling?
Or you may have to press the mouse. Oh, there we go. Eliminate and consolidate duplicates. It was an important point, so I wanted to make you wait for this one. Part of this process is we're going to be adding data to your donors. And if you have multiple members of the same household, then we're going to be skewing the analysis and we're going to be putting more weight on that household because we've added the same information to 2 or 3 individuals within the household that have given to your charity. So either you or the company you're working with needs to either eliminate or consolidate those donors into a single address record, not for your solicitation purposes or your annual campaigns, but simply for building this cloning model that we're going to be looking at in a few minutes. So we'll eliminate those duplicates. And you know what I'm going to do, Michelle? I'm going to have you be my clicker. Is it up there?
Oh, yeah.
There we go, bonus points. So then you want to utilize a hygiene process. A lot of you will take your databases and you'll send them to a print or mail shop. You may have an in-house process to do that. You may be working with a company online. But the 2 things that you want to do is you want to run CAS. Now, that's a post office term. Simply what it does is it validates the addresses on your database. It makes sure that that street name and that zip code and that pre-directional and post-directional and that house number all exist. And it puts those extra 4 digits onto your zip code. It's called the zip plus 4 code. That's as a result of CAS. So you want to run CAS and you want to get as many records as possible that have a zip plus 4 code on them. Because when you go into the process of building this cloning model, it only looks at records that have a zip plus 4. So if you can't put a zip plus 4 on a record, you need to fix it. I worked with a company just yesterday and they said, how do we fix them? Go to whitepages.com. Key in the name and it'll help you find the address. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of companies that offer these services. But you want to go out and you want to attempt to fix those addresses. A, because it's going to improve the way that you communicate to them when you do your direct mail. And B, it's going to help in this cloning process that we're talking about. Because we can only look at records with a zip plus 4. The other thing is, I'm supposed to point at her now? Is that what you're oh, that's over here. Okay, you were pointing and I thought I'm supposed to point at her and click. All right, the other thing is NCOA, National Change of Address. That's the file of individuals, families, and businesses that have moved within the last there's 2 versions. There's an 18-month version and a 48-month version. So anybody that goes to the post office and files a change of address notice matches to the NCOA and will apply the new address to your database. And you want to make sure that you get those and you also import those, or key those into your database. Now, the same rule applies for NCOA as it does for this process of modeling that we're going to talk about. You have to have a zip plus 4 on your record. If you don't have a zip plus 4, the post office won't allow service companies to match them to the NCOA database. So you have to have a good, clean, at work, thanks for the tip. Cloning requires a clean database. Zip plus 4 is the key word here, making sure that you have that. There we go. So how do we find them? We find them through a process called profiles or profiling. And I'm going to go through that whole process and share some results with you. It helps you better understand who your current donors are, and we'll look at some of those. It helps you understand what their interests are so that you can speak to them. Helps you find more of them, shows you where they are, and suggests how you can communicate with them. And I'm going to go through each one of these 5 bullet points in my last remaining 30 minutes. Okay, so it starts with data enrichment. Going through the cloning or the profiling process starts by adding data to your donor records. First with demographics, then there's 6 different areas that we're going to talk about. This process will or can add phone numbers and type of phone, whether it's a cell phone or a landline. The age in 2-year increments. You can add birth date if you want. Income levels for the household. Those are in ranges. The presence of children. Depending upon your cause, you can even add the gender and ages of the children from these processes. Their education level, high school, college, post-college, graduate degrees, and occupations in generic terms like professional, technical, homemaker, retired, blue collar, finance, whatever, is all available. The next is lifestyle interests. Information about, are they boaters or RV owners? Do they enjoy reading? Health and beauty, home decor. Are they pet owners? I believe you can actually get down to differentiating of cats and dogs. And the types of sports interests that they have. And I'm going to show you examples of these here in a few moments. I was going to point to you a second ago. Philanthropic. Are there interests in environmental, health, political, religious, or the arts? This is all at the household level. So for each one of you in this room, this data is available for each one of you based upon your household. And it's collected from surveys, from purchases, from magazine subscriptions. Financial income, net worth, whether you're a donator to causes and what types of causes, we'll look at those in a few moments here. Your discretionary spending dollars, which amazes me, but the fact is that information is available. What you spend online and what you spend offline. And whether your investment in stocks, bonds, and other types of funds. There we go. Property, your home market value, whether you're planning to move or whether you've just moved and when you moved. The square footage of your home, it goes down to how many bathrooms you have and if you have a swimming pool or a basement. Excuse me, how long you've lived in the home, whether you have a second property, an investment property or vacation property. And even helps you do some mapping, and we're going to look at that also here in a moment. And then whether they're your seniors, what types of ailments you have. Now, it's not specific. It will be ear or vision or I think in some cases you can get diabetic. And occupations can be added as well. And I keep pointing the wrong way. Donors of social concerns, and these are specific, again, at the household level. Military, Alzheimer's, arts, cancer, Catholic charities, children causes, health causes, military, wildlife, and environmental. Again, this is one of the higher areas of donation right now is wildlife and environmental issues. Native American, religion, world relief, and other charitable donor activities, animal causes, children causes, conservative causes, or liberal causes, political and social causes, veteran causes, the number of charities that a person has donated to in the last 3 years, the number of donations they made in the last 3 years, their propensity to donate, and even the total amount of dollars that they've donated to charity in the last 3 years is available to add. So, and I'm not quite sure because I create the content here and then Michelle goes and adds the graphics. So either Michelle is really interested in elephants or she's latently telling us that she's a Republican and interested in conservative causes. And I'm going to find out when I do an overlay on, on Michelle. So this profile process. So what happens? So take your database and these demographic information, or these other 6 areas that I talked about, are added to your database. They're matched on the name and the address. And again, you got to have a good address in order for this information to be matched. So it's added to it. You don't get it. You don't get the information. You get a report of it. That data is simply applied to generate this profile report. I'm going to show you some here in a few minutes. So it reports on your donors. And then it also reports on the same data in that same geographic footprint where you currently have donors. So we can see how well we are doing or not so well doing in that same geographic footprint for each one of those demographics that we've put on. And I'll show you that here. It builds a very simple model. And a model is that whole mathematical thing that Sheldon and I do at the beginning of the presentation that says what are the best demographics or interests that match your current common recent donor, and identify those households and score them. And I'll show you that here in a moment as well. So in order to do this profile cloning process, we need a minimum of 500 records in your database. And it will actually do up to 100,000 if you're a larger charity. You can take in 100,000, and again, we like to keep it to the last 2 years of donors that are your common donors to your program, removing the exceptions, removing those that are out of your geographic footprint. These profiles cost in the range of $500 to $1,000 each. It depends on how many records you have and how much hygiene work has to be done on the data beforehand. But you'll usually never spend more than $1,000 to get one of these. And it will give you a series of counts that tells you what's available. Yes.
So if you had, let's say, 1,000, let's say you had good information on 1,000 donors.
You'd spend about
would you pare it down to 500
No.
before you give it to
No, the more the better.
You just dump it all.
Yeah, the more the better. Yeah, the more records you have, the better type of profile that you're going to get. Good question. But we don't start with less than 500 because we can't get good statistical data for the model that's created with less than 500 records. Okay, so most profile packages that are available in the marketplace today work with this fixed set of demographic standards: age, gender, income, children's ages, whether they're in the home, the type of home, the home value, whether they have credit cards and investments, and some of their lifestyle dimensions. And those are grouped together. And I'll show you an example of those. So what I'm going to show you is a charity, but we use two different profiling packages so that you can see the similarities and the differences between the two of them. Because one of the packages uses that fixed set, and that's all there is to it. The other one uses up to 550 different demographics to report on in its profile and in its modeling process. And I'll show you the difference between the two of those. And as a user, you can decide which one you want, which is easier to use for you, or how we target those or clone those customers. So Profile A is on the left. And you'll see the way that it works is it does the ages in increments and then says, here's the percentage of your donors. And then here's the percent of population in the zip codes reflected in that donor group. And then it highlights where you're having the most success by creating what's called a penetration index. So here what it's saying is that 20% of your donors are between 55 and 64, and this is live data from a Cleveland-based charity. 20% are in that age group. 15% is the population in the zip codes where they have donations for the last 2 years. So it says that they're doing extremely well in that age bracket. But in these two age brackets, they're doing even better. 65 to 84 is their prime, because the scores there are 165 and 166. So this package represents it in bar graphs. The left side dark one are their donors. The right size lighter blue or teal, whatever, represents the percent of the population in the zip codes where they solicit donations from. So they can see how well they're doing. And you see here where the bars are higher for their current donors as opposed to the zip codes that they're in. So when it goes to create the model for these donors, it's going to look for individuals that are in this age group. Now, this package does a little bit different. It does age in 2-year increments. So each bar represents 2-year increments, and then the red line represents the zip codes where they donate to. So instead of doing a side-by-side bar, they do a chart graph as opposed to the bar. So looking at them, Profile A had 20% aged 55 to 65 and 21, so about 41%. Profile B had 23 and 22% at those age groups, so they were about 45%. Because companies that clone or profile each have their own databases that they use. There's 5 major compilers in the United States of consumer data that collect this information. Companies like Axiom, Experian, I can't remember who.
Accudata.
Pardon?
Accudata.
Accudata, yes. Yeah, there's 5. I can't remember them all offhand, but each of them uses a different database, and you're going to see some wildly different swings here in a moment. So, home market value is the next one. And on the profile on the left, it shows 15% are 100 to 150,000, and 20% are 150 to 200,000. So roughly 35% are in that $100,000 to $200,000 range for home value. Profile on the right shows 26% at 100 to 150,000. So it's almost double. And 20%, the same 20% at 150 to 200,000. So they're looking at almost 50% of the donors live in homes that have a value of 100 to 200,000, where this group is about a third. So what happens is when they go to score homes to select or recommend for you for cloning your donors, this is where they start to become different in the types of households that they select for targeting for your campaigns. There we go, household income. Profile A, here, it starts at 125,000, has a penetration index of 130. So Profile A is saying we need to target homes that have incomes of $125,000 plus, because only 6% are under $30,000. And they have 19% with 75 to 100. Profiler B has 23% of the donors under $30,000. Wildly different swing from what they have. And 14%, slightly less, is in that $75 to $99,000. So it becomes then a gut check. What do you feel really represents? Because these two profiles are saying things entirely different. They're under, so when this builds the model, they're under $30,000. When this builds the model, they're over $125,000 to create those. Now, same thing. They still have the red line here, and they're doing exceedingly well in the 75 to 100, and the 100 to 125, and so on. So when this model gets built, it will select some names from here and select some names from here as a part of their cloning process. Estimated net worth. We all know that's an important part of reflecting who a donor might be. In this case, 8% is under $25,000 and 29% are over $250,000. And this profiler stops at $500,000, where this particular profile goes all the way up to $10 million in net worth. So they show that 18% are under $25,000. Again, because they found homes and incomes that were under $30,000. So they're starting to look at a totally different type of household that is a typical donor for their charity, as opposed to what was coming up on this side. So this side started to become more reflective of the type of donor that they really had. Lower income, lower net worth.
So how do you choose which? I mean, I don't understand why the discrepancy.
That's
how you make those choices.
And that's the problem. And we were surprised when we ran them both parallel, because typically we go with one or the other. I typically like this one for more retail type of companies. I use this for sports organizations I've done with. I really like this one for nonprofits. Because it's more rich with data with nonprofit information, the database that they use. Unfortunately, we don't know what database they're using to go out and try to clone it. But if I sit down with a nonprofit organization, I lean towards this one. I show both. This one's a little more expensive, but it's still within that $1,000 budget to be able to do it. It's what you're comfortable with, and knowing this charity as I do, this was more reflective of their donors as opposed to this. Now, we ran both simply for the purposes of today's session, so they benefited from both. But this is the one that is reflective and is the recommendation for going forward with cloning their donors.
So is there a percent of accuracy that you can say it's accurate to a certain percent?
I wish I could. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do, is how, well, and of course both of them say, oh, well, we're 95% accurate with our data. It's their data collection methods and how they go out and collect their data. This company does use public records. They use surveys. This company uses warranty information. You know those little warranty cards you fill out when you get a product? A lot of their data comes from that. But the same thing, they use public records. It's how well they get coverage and can access that. I actually, when I got to this point, I went back to see both files were 3,000 records, and both files this company actually coded 100 more records than this one. There were around 2,500 and 2,600 matches to the data with the addresses that were there, but they were the identical files run within a month of each other. So again, it goes back to what you feel is right, and this is the one I think for this particular group, this one fit better, as it does for others. Lifestyles. This one found all the lifestyles except home life. These were people that don't stay at home. They go out and do things, as opposed to this group, which starts to go different and says, okay, are these charitable donors? And what it found is 22% of these people don't give to any other charities. Or they give to a lot of charities. So it was really different, but same thing. You'll see when we get to the model that generated. So company A simply compares the short bars and tall bars to build their model. Company B takes in all 550 demographics and lifestyle interests to build their model and score it. And these were the extra attributes that they found above the ones that were already in the profile, that these people give to charity, they have no children in the home. Their net worth is $100,000 plus, is the best for responders, and their monthly discretionary spend is $1,000 a month. So that's how they built their models. A part of the process is also being the ability to create a map. On the left is a pinpoint map using Google, and you'll see in this particular charity that they have a lot of donors in the Berea Olmsted Falls area, in the Lakewood area, and in the University Heights area. So that helps them if they're trying to do event planning or they're doing other types of programs to promote their charity. The right side is a heat map, where red is the highest concentration, blue is the lowest concentration. But either are available. You can choose which one you prefer. Then each creates what are called scored lists, taking the information from the profile and from the model that's created. Every single household in the zip codes where they solicit is scored based upon how well it matches the existing donors. On the left side, we picked a few zip codes. They break them into 10% increments. The people that scored 90% or more as a match were called premium, preferred, and select. And they have 28,000, almost 29,000 names based upon their model. This has 25,000. But again, it's slightly different because they had lower incomes and lower home values as a part of their model. So while the counts are similar, the names are different. So the other option is you can actually append up to 550 different demographic, lifestyle, and interest values to your database. This allows you own the data then. You can personalize your communication because you know if they have a boat or if they have an RV, or I don't remember what the other ones we had were. Archery, is that? Yeah, whatever. So you can personalize your communications, but you have to do your own analysis. You have to select your own values. And it's a little more expensive than profiles. It depends on what your budget is. The append data is sort of set up like, has anybody been to, what is it, the taco place downtown? Barrio? Yeah, where they give you the whole list of things that you can add on to your taco. Okay, this is the same thing. You actually get an Excel sheet with 550 demographics, and you decide which ones you want to add to your database, what is important to you to know about your donors. So this is a different nonprofit organization. They're located in Cleveland, and they decided rather than build a model, they wanted to append the data and do their own analysis. So they chose boats, gardening, golf, and great outdoors. And you'll see here, no was 52%, gardening was no 53%, golf, no 43%, great outdoors was yes 54%. But each one of these was added to each record in their donor database. Then they wanted to find out what they were interested in, so where do they donate? They don't donate to animals or elephants. Children's causes, some health causes, but what showed up was they donate to political conservative causes, was important. But again, because they had all this information, they know how to speak to each one of their donors, but it also allowed them to go to, they also appended what kind of car they have, which I thought was interesting. But they used that because they print a program, and they're able to use that to go out and solicit advertisers because they know what kind of cars their donors drive. And it became important information, and they were able to show them hard facts. These are the types of vehicles that our donors have. So I'm running out of time. How do we speak? So how you speak to the 4 generations, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, and the greatest generation. I'm not there yet. What % of the population they are. Yeah, that raised some eyebrows from my coworkers. Online giving, donate, 15%. So the Facebook givers are the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, the 40 to 75-year-olds. Most of these attend events. What surprised me, and this came from that Donor USA, 41% of all giving comes from Gen Xers aged 40 to 54. That number really surprised me, as opposed to 19% from baby boomers and 26% from the greatest generation. How much they give to charity, but this is the communication. The millennials, the 24 to 40, are active on the phones and social media. They aren't email, and they aren't into telemarketing, mostly because they're cell phones. There's no landlines. The Gen Xers, phone, social media, direct mail, and telemarketing, as are the baby boomers. Baby boomers answer calls, they check email, they text, they social media, and they respond to direct mail. In fact, almost 25% of them donate because of a direct mail solicitation. The greatest generation prefer direct mail and calls, and not the rest, which seems fairly obvious. They're not into the email, the texting, and the social media. On average, direct mail generates higher response rates, but email generates higher gifts. Direct mail only donors renew at higher rates than email donors. Email donors seem to be one-off donations, but multi-channel donors are the strongest donors. Oops. Okay, I'm trying to go backwards. There we go. Expectations on response rates. House file around 7%. Average gift was $24. Prospects was about 2%. Average gift to $15. Email, the average response rate is less than 0.1%. And the average gift, though, you see was $36. This is again from the this is the Direct Mail Association Response Analysis book for 2018. And telephone response rate is 23% with an average gift of just under $25. Email drives around 25 or 28% of online revenue. 68% of donors trust websites. They go to your websites. You'll see that stat coming up here in a moment. For every 1,000 emails that you send, it will raise an average of $17. Again, this was the national average from the DMA. And open rate on emails is about 15 to 18%. Okay, one more slide. 90% of your prospects will visit your website before they donate, which I thought was an interesting statistic. People go check out your website because they want to know about your charity. When they receive that direct mail or digital solicitation, 96% of people who visit your website do so without making a donation. They're just looking around. Direct mail and digital ads will increase that response rate. Web visitors who are retargeted, which is, I think we're going to talk about retargeting next, okay, are 70% more likely to convert, and 26% of those will actually return to the website with retargeting to make a donation. So my recap is, focus on the data health, good addresses. Zip plus 4 is the key word. While relationships and stewardships are key to developing strong donors, you also have to focus on the cleanliness of your database. Remove duplicates, outdated, and incorrect records. Ask for help in understanding who your donors are with this profile or cloning process. Understand where they are, how old they are, and the best way to communicate with them. Make sure you clean your data, and then find new donors with this profile or appending the demographic information to your data. And that's it. And did I make it?